Proverbs 22:7 that literally tells us do not go into debt. And I feel like the Bible is very explicit in its choice of words here. It says the borrower is slave to the lender, not the borrower is indebted to the lender, not the borrower is beholden to the lender. It says the borrower is the slave to the lender. And if you are someone who has an immense amount of debt, you probably feel like you are slave to the lender. You are literally working to pay debts. What do you have left after that? What do you have left? All your debts are paid if you are just head over heels in debt. It's really hard to have a great quality of life if you're in debt. Now, of course, some people will say, well, there's good debt and there's bad debt, right? Good debt is like a mortgage, supposedly. Good debt might be a student loan. Bad debt might be a car loan or a personal loan or what have you. That's what people would say good and bad debt is. But at the end of the day, debt is debt. And you got to pay it back regardless if it's good or bad. Doesn't really matter. Debt is debt is debt is debt is debt. It's debt. Okay? Don't be a slave to the lender as much as you can. Now, of course, if you already have debt, you need to pay it back. That actually is in the Bible as well somewhere, that you should pay your debts. However, the goal is to get out of debt so you don't become or stay slave to the lender. The fact is the average person in America is $38,000 in debt. $38,000. That's a car. That's a down payment on a house. That's a good amount of money for you to give to your child to go to college. What could you do with $38,000? And that doesn't even include the mortgage debt, right? We're just talking about personal debt. We're talking about a student loan. We're talking about a car loan. We're talking about credit card bills. We're talking about store cards. We're talking about all that kind of stuff, excluding the mortgage. $38,000 of personal debt that people have. And if you're a business owner and you have debt as well, you've got debt on top of that generally. So you've got your personal debt and then you've got your business debt, because you possibly took out a loan or used credit cards or whatever to fund your business. Oh my gosh, it's team too much. Don't be a slave. If you have not yet left a comment, make sure you drop one in the comment section. Let me know what verse resonates the best with you. If it's not one of the ones I've covered in this video, let me know in the comments below which ones that you really love. The Bible is very, very clear on this part. We all know the plight of the slave to his or her master. The Bible warns against taking out debt to buy things that we want or need. Instead, we are encouraged in the Bible to budget and save. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. When you owe others, you are always at their mercy. We all know that you lose money when you pay interest. And depending on how much the interest is, I mean, it could be 25% interest sometimes. Some of these cards have 30% interest. I mean, even 10% or 8% interest is too much because you're paying more than you actually borrowed. It's too much. The more money you're giving away, the less money you have in your pocket. And if you're a believer and you are a tither or you are a giver, you have less money to give. You can't do that part of your life as well as you would like to because you're spending all your money giving it to make somebody else rich. I heard someone say once that the interest you pay on debt is somebody else's passive income. Can you imagine being the lender sitting on your yacht in St. Bart's somewhere and just collecting checks because you get a ton of interest from people who are in debt from you? No, miss me with that. As much as you can, stay out of debt. Remove debt from your life. It's hard to even have peace because you're always up thinking about the debt that you owe. How many times have you had sleepless nights because you're like, oh my gosh, I owe so much money. How am I going to pay this? Worried about how things are going to get taken care of because you got debt that you got to pay. You've got to pay that down. You've got to put a plan in place to remove that from your life. You will have so much freedom. And this is coming from someone who had a significant amount of debt that I had to pay off. I understand this. Trust me, I do. Okay. Having debt and then paying it off, it's like the floodgates open up for your quality of life. Like, I have so much less stress just because I don't owe everybody and their mama anymore. I'm telling you, if you are in this position, you have got to put a plan in place to get that debt taken care of. Even if you don't owe a creditor, think about just friendships or family relationships, right? How many times have you heard of someone who has lost a friendship over money because someone owes them money and they didn't pay it back or they started avoiding them? I mean, personally, I have a friend right now who owes me a lot of money. I ain't heard from her. I called her. I'm calling her just to chop it up, just to talk, right? Not even to ask about the money. And she's avoiding me. We've been friends forever. And she is literally like, we don't even talk anymore. There's been no beef. There's been no argument about it. I asked about it one time. She borrowed it like 3 years ago. She never paid it back. I happened to bring it up and she said she was going to pay it back. And then she just never called me again. Just literally disappeared off the face of the earth. That sucks. To lose a friend over money that was borrowed for whatever. Maybe she can't pay it back. Maybe she doesn't have the money. Maybe things are going on in her life, but I don't know because she hasn't communicated it with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that hurts my heart. Like, friendship breakups are hard and almost harder than like an intimate relationship breakup with like between like two lovers, right? But she's more than likely avoiding me because of the stress and the shame that she has from not paying the debt back. But it's easier to hide than it is to tackle it head on. So even if you don't borrow money from a traditional lender per se, right? But you borrow it from a friend or a family member or someone who's close to you or someone who's not necessarily charging you interest, that is still a debt that you have to pay and it weighs heavy on you. You think about it. You may not talk about it. You may not mention it in the case with my friend who's avoiding me, but you definitely know that you owe it and it adds a layer of stress to your life. In the case of family and friends, my therapist actually told me that lending money to family and friends creates psychologically a slave and a master relationship, where even if unspoken, the borrower feels like the lender holds power over them. And psychologically, they do. Don't be a slave to the lender.